Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today's episode is going to be a quicker one since I am a Knicks fan. I'm going to be breaking down all the positive aspects of this roster that I am looking forward to based on the moves that were made this offseason as well as some concerns that I have. And then at the end of the video, I will be giving my prediction as to where I believe this team will end up in the standings for the regular season and as well as where I view the Knicks as a playoff contender compared to the other Eastern Conference contenders as well as playoff contenders. So without any further delay, let's get straight into the video. To start off, the positive aspects about this Knicks roster that I'm looking forward to seeing play out in this upcoming season, I have the point guard rotation. Now, the point guard position has been one of dire need for our New York Knicks for a very long time. When you take a look at the history of the franchise, even excluding, the 70s with Walt Frazier and, occasional years in the 2000s with Stephon Marbury, every other decade, pretty much, the Knicks have really had a lack of, a strong point guard. And, that need carried on into the 2010s. And while it necessarily wasn't, addressed with a blue chip talent, such as, there were some on the market, such as, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, a Chris Paul. And, those guys required the bank to be broken to acquire those guys. And, Leon Rose and Scott Perry did a great job of acquiring a slew of players, at that position that would, be able to play off of each other and fill the role of a starting caliber point guard that could take this Knicks roster to the next level. And one of those guys that we did bring in was Kemba Walker, the point guard previously of the Boston Celtics. He just finished up a tenure there, which did not end so well. He is a native New Yorker, as much as many of you know. The name speaks for itself. Kemba Walker, when he's healthy, is one of the best scoring point guards in the league. He has one of the best handles in the league. Despite his size, he has an amazing pull-up jump shot, especially from behind the arc. That's really his go-to move. Primarily Kemba Walker is a 20-point per game scorer, no questions asked. But due to his small stature and his lower body slowly deteriorating these past couple years, and especially during his tenure with Boston, he was available, on the market post a buyout with Oklahoma City, which he was traded to from Boston. Now, Kemba Walker, I am very excited to see Kemba Walker play with us. I'm expecting him to be the starting point guard from day one. And as long as he's healthy, he's going to bring something to this offense, which we haven't had pretty much ever in the history of our franchise. A high-level scoring point guard who can create his own shot at such a high pace and just open up the floor for all of the other players on the court, just because of the level of respect he commands from the defense. I'm expecting a lot from Kemba Walker, but at the same time, he does have his injury concerns, and again, his knees have slowly deteriorated as time has gone on. So as long as he can stay healthy, this is a great signing. And even then, it's only a 2-year deal, I believe, for about $8 million. I could be wrong. But again, it's a great signing. It's a high risk. It's low risk, high reward. And then if he's not healthy, we also have Derrick Rose, who we brought in. We traded for him at last year's trade deadline. He was a huge piece for us in the second half of the season, and as well in the playoffs. He was our best player. And we brought him back this previous offseason. He's our de facto sixth man. He is going to be making about $15 million for 3 years with a team option on the third year. So technically, it's just a 2-year deal. Then again, I am a bit sour on paying Derrick Rose $15 million for 2 years, guaranteed. But still, Derrick Rose is a great locker room presence, right? He loves being in New York. The fans love him. We're all behind him. And he gives very steady, solid production at that point guard spot. And similar to Kemba Walker, you do have injury concerns with Derrick Rose, right? I don't need to go into, too much depth about Derrick Rose's history with injuries. We all know his experience with those, but he is one injury away from potentially hanging up his number and being done with playing basketball. So that does definitely worry me. And having our two primary point guards both being extremely injury prone at this point in their careers does worry me a little bit. But again, since they are both, similar point guards in the way that they both look for theirs before they look for others, and that's not to say that both of them can't, open up shots, get teammates open shots or so on and so forth. It's just that they're shot making point guards before anything else. And I think that they can both play, 25 minutes each each night, and whenever one is hot, the other one can kind of take a backseat so that you can keep the both of them healthy. And I think that's a great 1-2 punch, and especially at the cost that Leon Rose got Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose. I am a bit sour on again, but it is still it's Derrick Rose, and he loves this team. Not much needs to be said with that. We also have Miles Mcbride, who we drafted in the second round. As you guys know, if you do follow my channel, I had him ranked as a top 20 prospect. I loved Miles Mcbride coming out of the draft. His attitude, his drive, his physical traits. He's not the most athletic player, especially when finishing around the basket, in my opinion. But he's a dog. He goes out there and he competes. He's a Knicks. He's a New York City kind of player. He's a Tibbs kind of player. He's a dog defensively, and he's a great shot maker from the mid range area, and is improving as a player that can create his own shot from behind the arc. So I am a big fan of Miles Mcbride moving forward. I always have been, and I especially love him on my New York Knicks. And he brings a different kind of play style compared to the other two, as to where Kemba Walker is, due to his small stature, is not a good defender. And Derrick Rose is, despite him being a bigger point guard, he's not the best defender either. Miles Mcbride, you could throw that out there for defensive specialist minutes, and he can get hot from offensively due to how he excels as a shot creator, and given how confident of a player he is. You also have Luca Vildosa, who we signed last season. Really, once the season was over, so technically it still it wasn't necessarily the off season yet, so I still consider it last season. But we signed him to a 4-year $12 million deal. And Luca Vildosa is a 6'3" point guard. He's a very solid playmaker, very solid facilitator, very high IQ player who's a great shot maker. He's going to be able to space the floor at that 6'3" frame. Is a very crafty defender. Not the best in terms of finishing around the basket, and I think he can get attacked, especially defensively against bigger, more aggressive guards. Upon watching his overseas film, but again, he's a very solid option at that point guard spot. He adds depth to, again, a position of need that the Knicks really haven't addressed in such a long period of time. We've attempted to with players such as Frank Ntilikina or Dennis Smith, but we have 4 different point guards. These are the 4 different point guards that are going to be in competition with each other for minutes, and they all bring something different, right? Excluding Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose, right? They're both going to be scoring the ball. They're going to be opening up shots for RJ and Julius Randle and whatnot, due to the respect that defenses have to give them. You have Miles Mcbride for defensive purposes, and as well as shot making purposes as his game continues to develop, as he gets older, more experienced. And then you have Luca Vildosa for a more off-ball approach. So 4 point guards, all different roles, and if Kemba Walker can stay healthy, he's a 20 to 22 point per game scorer automatically. So I'm very excited to see how this point guard position handles for my New York Knicks in this upcoming season. I'm so excited to see how players such as RJ Barrett or Julius Randle are going to look with a Kemba Walker hopefully healthy, with a Derrick Rose healthy, maybe even Miles Mcbride if he comes out the gates shooting fire. So again, I'm very excited to see that. And my next point is roster depth, which does play on the point guard rotation a little bit, which I'm very happy with the way that Leon Rose has filled out this roster, right? Excluding the point guard position, which we just talked about. You take into position, wings, right? 2s and 3s. We have RJ Barrett. We signed Evan Fournier, who's, again, a lot of people have problems with his contract. I don't really have too many problems with it, just because that's the market for a scorer of his caliber. So again, I've kind of taken it easy with the Evan Fournier signing. We have Alec Burks, Quentin Grimes, who I was very high on. As you guys know, if you do follow my content, I had him top 10 on my big board. I loved Quentin Grimes. We have him, and hopefully maybe even if Kevin Knox can maybe take a step towards being a rotation player, then he could be in the fold as well. We have Julius Randle at the forward spot. We have Obi Toppin off the bench, who's looked awesome in summer league. He looks confident. He looks quicker. He looks more aggressive. and that you love to see that from a top 10 pick. And even at the center spot, we have Mitchell Robinson, who we're hoping to take a big step in year 4 and stay healthy, and as well as a player like Nerlens Noel, who's arguably one of the best backup bigs in the league, and was one of the best rim protectors in the league this previous season. So with that being said, that's a lot of depth at every single position that the Knicks have, and it's a next man up sort of mentality, and given the way that Tibbs coaches this team, it's a very, how should I put this? It's a dog mindset, right? Guys are just coming in hard to work. If one guy can't play, the next guy just steps up, and we just keep it rolling. And the roster construction that Leon Rose has put forth in terms of filling out this roster really does help that mindset in terms of all the different point guards that we have that could get minutes, all the different wings that we have that are fighting for minutes. Obi Toppin, a top 10 pick, budding for minutes over Julius Randle, who was an All-NBA third-team caliber of player last season. And then we have Mitchell Robinson, who's still a center. I think he is definitely overrated by us Knicks fans, but he's a very solid center, and as well as one of the best backup bigs in the league. So the roster depth, I'm very excited to see all these guys play for us next season. And moving on, I have our young core developing, right? We've really set up a very solid foundation, right? We don't have any necessarily blue chip caliber of young talent, right? We don't have a Shai Gilgeous, we don't have a De'Aaron Fox, we don't have a Trae Young, right? But we have a very solid group of guys that are all going to be at the very least very solid rotation players. We have RJ Barrett taking a next step in year 3, and me personally, I'm not expecting RJ Barrett to take that many more shots. Actually, I'm expecting him to take probably not significantly, but less shots than he did take this previous season. All that I ask for RJ Barrett is to be more efficient. That's all I need for RJ Barrett, especially around the basket. He, despite what based on his build for that shooting guard position, what you might think of what you might imagine his percentages being in the paint, but his percentages were not pretty around the basket, and he needs to get, if he can get those percentages up, he'll be fine. And I expect him to. I just need him to be more efficient around the basket, and RJ Barrett will be fine. He doesn't need to take off on-ball jump shots, nothing like that. Just be efficient in your role, and just as long as he can become a better scorer around the basket, he'll be fine. We have Quickly. Hopefully, Quickly takes another step in year 2. He did have a couple bad games in summer league, but in general, Emmanuel Quickly did look very good in summer league. His handle looked better, and I think the point guard experiment with him was a bit rocky, but I think once summer league went on a little bit, I think he definitely got the hang of it. He's definitely not a natural playmaker, and given all the point guards that we do have on this roster, I expect him to play a more off-ball approach, and I expect him to be in that guard spot. I didn't even mention Emmanuel Quickly. Emmanuel Quickly joins that group of wings, that are competing for minutes. But I'm expecting him to take another step next year. Be more efficient, be more consistent of a player. Just play his role. Miles McBride, very high on Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes. Again, all they need to do is come in and play their roles, right? Hit shots, play defense. They're both extremely capable of that. And you're hoping that Obi Toppin can take a significant step in year 2, even though he might not get the opportunities, in terms of, on ball, in terms of like shot attempts. You would expect him to be more efficient with the shots that he does get. Mitchell Robinson is entering his 4th year. This is do or die for Mitchell Robinson. Again, he wasn't healthy last year. He hurt his hand, he hurt his foot. So as long as he stays healthy, I do expect him to have a very solid season. So again, that's a very big group of young players that Leon Rose has gathered together. And while again they're not necessarily blue chip talent, it's very, very solid talent, a very good crop of young players that I'm very excited to see. All those guys take a step forward in this upcoming season. Then I have our offensive firepower, right? Again, with the addition of a player such as Kemba Walker. As long as Kemba Walker can stay healthy, that does wonders for RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, right? RJ Barrett has been playing with Elfrid Payton his entire career. Elfrid Payton was probably the worst starting point guard in the league last year. Actually, I would go on a limb and say he was definitely the worst starting point guard in the league last year. He kills the spacing. We always have a center playing with Julius Randle. Julius Randle primarily has the ball. Teams are not just gonna. Teams do help off of Randle, but again, RJ had no lanes to attack the basket last year. Now he's going to have plenty of space to attack, with all the different floor spacers that we did at all the different shot creators, right? We have RJ Barrett, who is a 17-point per game scorer, again, who is hopefully going to take a jump in year 3. Julius Randle, all NBA third team caliber of player. Kemba Walker, when he's healthy, a 19-point per game scorer. Derrick Rose, what he's capable of doing, right? Quickly, what he's capable of doing when he's hot. Evan Fournier is an 18-point per game scorer. Alec Burks, what he's capable of doing, right? So we have all these collection of guys, right? That's excluding a guy like me. I could definitely see a player like Miles Mcbride hitting the floor and running, or Quentin Grimes hitting the floor and running, right? I'm very high on both of those guys, so I'm expecting production from those guys, right? So again, this is a very deep roster with a lot of different talent offensively, which is what we desperately needed last year. And while we were definitely a fun team to watch defensively, on offense, this team was extremely painful at times to watch. And we went out there and we acquired two different 20-point per game scores. Kevin Walker, when he's healthy, is a borderline all-star at this point in his career, and Evan Fournier is an 18-point per game scorer. So again, I'm expecting big things from this offense next year. With the improved spacing and with the added firepower, especially in terms of on-ball shot creation. And finally, I have year two in the defensive system. Again, how good of a team and how sound of a team the Knicks were defensively last season is unprecedented, right? What Thibodeau was able to get out of this roster, and while we definitely do have solid defenders, I wouldn't necessarily say we have any, again, similar to what I said about our young core, how like we have a bunch of solid players. We don't have any blue chip talent. We don't have any blue chip talent defenders, right? Maybe Mitchell Robinson can get there at some point in his career. I don't believe he will. I think that I definitely think that ship has sailed. But I could definitely see, we have Julius Randle, who is a pretty solid defender, very good defender on occasion. RJ Barrett was a solid defender last year, right? These guys played better than the sum of their parts, and you added again more talent. And I'm only expecting bigger things, given that this is year two in the system, right? Guys are going to be working with Tibbs in the offseason. I'm expecting the defense to look much more sound than it did last year. And, with Mitchell Robinson healthy, that gives Nerlens Noel, a little bit of a break. And, apparently Mitchell Robinson has been adding weight to his frame. So I am expecting big things, from this defense in this upcoming season. Next up, we have some worries or some slight concerns that I do have for this Knicks roster coming into this upcoming season. First up, I have Randle potentially taking a step back. I have seen some pretty lofty comparisons from Knicks fans. I have gotten into some arguments. Some Knicks fans do believe that Randle is on the same caliber of a player as, a Jason Tatum or, even a Zion Williamson. And while I do think Randle definitely had a great season, I am slightly concerned that, maybe this past season was the best season of his career. And while I definitely don't deny his talent or work ethic, it's just, when you take a look at the numbers and just really break down his game, and he just takes a lot of contested, tough shots. And while the floor is definitely going to be more open for him, it's just I have to see another season of Julius Randle being at that level to be 100% bought in that he is going to be, the star of this team moving forward. And that's not to say that, Julius Randle is like, going to be our best player whenever if we ever win a title or anything. That's just to say that Randle is like, the foundation player, the star player that, we continue to build around and hopefully attracts other stars to come to New York. But again, Randle was not necessarily, too efficient last year. His efficiency was good, not great. And, given how tough of shots he did take last year, I would not be surprised if, this previous season was a little bit of catching lightning in a bottle, essentially. Am I betting on Julius Randle taking a step back next season? No, I'm not. I definitely hope he doesn't. But again, I'm some Knicks fans are expecting him to still average, like 25, 10 and 6. And, I hope he averages that again. But, I could definitely see a world where Randle averages, maybe 22 points, 10 rebounds, and like 4 assists. And the efficiency definitely takes a step back. So that is a potential concern that I do have if Randle is not, necessarily carrying this offense. And that takes me into my next step, because if Randle isn't carrying the offense and, our point guards are not healthy, primarily Kemba Walker or Derrick Rose. Again, as I previously talked about, Kemba Walker is his knees are deteriorating. Hopefully he stays healthy, right? Knock on wood, but still, it's definitely a concern. And then Derrick Rose is one knee injury away from his career being over. So, our point guard's health is definitely a big concern. And while, I definitely did say it was a positive to have all these different point guards, again, you have to keep in mind their health. And, I'd be a fool if I said I wasn't worrying about, the health of all of Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose, right? But again, if doesn't, if Randle does take a step back and our point guards aren't healthy, that's going to be a recipe for disaster for us. Unless, again, as I previously stated, those young guys do take a step forward, right? And then next, I have Tibbs' offensive creativity in the playoffs, right? Tibbs is just a coach that seems stuck in his ways, really, even going back to his Chicago Bulls days. And he's always lacked a bit of creativity in terms of, on the offensive side of the floor. But, I just, he, some of the decisions he made in the playoffs was just a bit head scratching. I think he could have done a lot more to try to get Trae Young on the ball, to just hunt Trae Young. He kind of just let him stick to Reggie Bullock. And, when he did try to attack Trae Young, it was just like one screen, and then Trae Young would just get through the screen. And it was like, okay, well, I guess that's it. I mean, the whole goal was to keep on attacking him, and then also just go 5 out with Randle in the playoffs, right? So that you give him more space, because the Clint Capella or whoever was at center for the Hawks was always shadowing Randle. So it was kind of like Randle was like facing a double team, but like not really. It was like a 1.5. It was like one player and like half a double team, right? So again, it was tough for Randle, and just the adjustments that Tibbs did not make in the playoffs. It was very troubling to me, and despite the talent being added. If Tibbs can't get that to work and get it all to mesh and make the proper adjustments and get creative in the playoffs, then all of the additions, such as Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker will be for nothing. And we won't see that until we get to the playoffs, right? Because I think this is a roster that's definitely good enough to overlook this problem, in the regular season. But again, in the playoffs, I definitely have big concerns about Tibbs' stubbornness and creativity, because when you take a look around the league, those are the guys that are winning championships, right? Are the coaches that are big on coaches that make adjustments and get creative, right? Your Nick Nurses of the world, your Eric Spoelstras of the world. Even Frank Vogel got creative at sometimes, especially on the defensive end of the floor, right? Even Mike Budenholzer, for all his flaws, got creative at times. So if Tibbs can't do that, all the additions will be for nothing, because in a 7-game series, you have enough time to formulate a strong enough game plan. Again, when you are playing 7 games. So again, we won't see this problem till the playoffs, right? But it definitely still is a big concern for me moving forward. And while you can't say, oh, well, we added the talent, right? Seeing is believing. So that's going to be a concern for mine until I do see it happen. And then finally, I have the East will be healthier and better, right? Philly, for all their woes, is still a top 3 seed in the East. Despite their playoff struggles, they're going to finish with a better record than us, right? Brooklyn, if they're healthy, they're the best team in the NBA. I mean, there's not much to really argue there, right? Milwaukee just won a championship, right? Miami, they added Kyle Lowry. Their 2 best players are better than our best player. That's just the end of it, right? Miami's just a better team, right? That's 4 teams that are already better than us. You can make an argument that a team like Chicago or potentially even Boston. I don't understand the Boston hate. Like, why? I know that they didn't really necessarily have a good season, but they still have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and depending on how Dennis Schroeder does play this season, I'm expecting Dennis Schroeder to look to bounce back to make up the money that he did lose out on this in this previous offseason. I don't understand why people aren't talking about Boston as a team much, right? We still have Atlanta, and we finished with the same record as Atlanta, who, let's just put it this way, Atlanta had a coaching change in the middle of the season. Danilo Gallinari missed a lot of time. Bogdan missed a lot of time. DeAndre Hunter missed a lot of time. Onyeka Okongwu missed a lot of time. All of the Hawks offseason additions missed time and had a coaching change. And they still finished with the same record as us. And they swept us. Gentlemen sweep in the playoffs. They're the better team. Miami finished with the same record as us, and they had COVID problems going crazy. And they still tied us, same record as us. And we were significantly healthier than those teams. And while we definitely got better, those teams are not only getting better by just being healthier, right? A lot of those teams dealt with COVID, and with vaccines and everything, COVID isn't going to be as prevalent as it was this previous season. So those teams are just getting healthier, and by being healthier, they're just better than us. So while we did definitely add talent, I still think that we're not in that top tier of Eastern Conference teams. I struggle to see how we can compete with an Atlanta, and even in Miami. Given the concerns that we do have with just health, that's not even taking into account those teams just being better, than us. So those are the negatives that I do have for this Knicks roster. And that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, this is just a quick little video about my New York Knicks. I just wanted to get out, my thoughts about them, and my expectations for them in this upcoming season, and what things that I am looking forward to and things that I am worried about, again, for this upcoming season. And since it is the off season, I'm going to be moving towards draft content, where I'm going to be breaking down all the most highly touted prospects in the upcoming 2022 draft class. So stay on the lookout for that. Besides that, that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Peace.